The Dallas Cowboys defense has been an utter disappointment this season. And they aren't just losing, they're reacting. Watching them play is the equivalent of playing black in chess. Every snap, it seems that the offense has the first move. In this video, we hope to shed light on the growing problem and the problem with the Dallas Cowboys defense and why it is utterly historic to our standards, because this utter disappointment has drawn up a lot of questions. Why is the Cowboys defense struggling? And is it really a talent issue? To me, it's not really on the players. I think it's more of a philosophy issue. You see, they are repping a passive reactive system, and I believe it's letting opposing quarterbacks get into a rhythm. But first, let me touch a few sections on the other issues, the overarching issue. Let's start with the first one. I think the lowest hanging fruit that a lot of people are not really talking about, and that's the stubborn identity. And this is pointing directly at the front office. We have had 3 defensive coordinators in 3 years: Dan Quinn, Mike Zimmer, and now Matt Eberflus. But the one constant when you look at this team that is not normal, especially with roster construction, is the defensive roster. There has not been that much turnover, especially for 3 completely different defensive systems. Dan Quinn had a hybrid attack-based defense, you know what I'm saying, leaning more on his playmakers. Mike Zimmer had a heavy disguise defense with pattern mismatch and mainly with gap discipline. And Matt Eberflus is a static zone shell that is a bend but don't break philosophy. Now, I know we can really draft, and I know the Dallas Cowboys, when it comes to scouting players, they're pretty good. But I'm gonna tell you right now, there are not this many scheme-proof players on his defense. Corporate number 1 is your safeties, okay? Because that's the main thing we should be focusing on, especially from the change from Zimmer to Eberflus, or even from Dan Quinn to Zimmer, because we knew that Zimmer emphasized his safeties, and that with the safeties that are aging that we had on the roof, that we had questions for multiple years, how are they withstanding multiple coordinators? And sometimes this even goes as early as the draft picks. The most notable one is when we picked with the first round pick in Mozzie Smith, who I know the Cowboys Nation has a hate and love relationship with this guy, mostly hate. But we knew going in, when Dan Quinn was there, he did not fit Dan Quinn's system, but it didn't stop him from drafting this guy without taking account the fit. So players like him get faded in, has to change his body type, have to change his play style, having to change position coaches over and over and over again, but the front office is still expecting results. It's literally the equivalent of putting Ferrari tires on a truck and trying to call it a race car. You can't fit a square peg into a round hole like this just because you're paying them and just because they play defense. I believe that is a huge flaw, not seeing the nuance in everyone's scheme and having some type of high and mighty mentality, saying, hey, we're paying you, come in and make our defense great. That's not wise. This is not wise at all. And it's just such frustrating as Cowboy Nation, as content creators, when we constantly see these examples over and over again, and then we see great players like Jordan Lewis, who's forced into deep zone responsibilities when we know he's an aggressive corner that wants to bump and run, or a Maris Lewifau, who's a very smart linebacker, very athletic. We got to see him sitting in hook the zones and curl flats, making him sit back and come up and tackle with the roof up. Having these players play these positions, that the constant friction between that is so frustrating. The next problem, specifically with Eberflus's defense, is the internal clock of the opposing team's quarterbacks. I believe we let the opposing team get into a hard, comfortable rhythm, okay? And I know it's a part of the bend but don't break scheme, okay? It's to extend the rhythm, make them go the long way, make them do the long drawn out drives, and seeing if they're gonna make the mistake later on in the drives. But there has to be a balance with this, man, because it's allowing high completion rates, and this is the equivalent of a shooter in the NBA seeing the ball go through the hole. That just gives them confidence. I think the most, the biggest game that comes to mind is the last game I think Russell Wilson started versus us pass when he was taking the routine throws, taking it, walking right down, getting the gashes and everything like that. And then he'll build up enough confidence like he's playing a video game, watching the gauge go up, and then he's taking it deep. And then our roof at the time was still compromised, which made it look even worse. The average time to throw versus the Cowboys is between 2.4 and 2.6 seconds, which is one of the lowest pressure per dropback rates in the entire league. And when teams are facing the Dallas Cowboys, their completion percentage is 7 to 10% higher than their season average. That right there should tell you right off bat, teams are ultra comfortable when they play us, and that is a giant red flag. But here's the annoying part. Where we have games where the second half of the Philadelphia game, the first game of the season, or games versus the Jets, when you clearly showed more blitz and a blitzing percentage, you disrupted your rhythm and you had a ultra amount of success that you should have confirmed and adapted a little bit with, man. I feel like every defense has an identity. I think ours is just wait and see, but the longer you wait, the more comfortable the quarterback gets. And I don't believe that's defense. I think that's just hospitality as we usher them closer and closer to the touchdown. So moving on and piggybacking off that statement, it seems like when I'm watching defense is the equivalent of playing black in chess. And someone who played chess, listen, there's white and black. We know white gets the first move and everything like that. It just seems like this defense is purely on reactions. And I feel like from a football standpoint, it's okay, but you need to have a heavy balance when you need to attack the deep and dictate something with the offense as well. Shout out to Boss Cowboy Sports. He literally just said it. This is literally the equivalent to Kellen Moore's system that got him ultimately fired when he was here, which is basically, it was the digit system, which is not, it was going with a hot hand and not with your stars no matter what. So taking what the defense gets you and you adjusting to that. But when you do that, you are liable to fall into the trap that your opponent set for you. Sure, this is something that got really amplified when we traded Michael Parsons, which was a bad trade, okay? But we need to somehow, I believe, to fix this, somehow formulate a dominant front four so Eberflus can do what he wants, or Eberflus needs to get creative and do disguise coverage. Maybe something with Zimmer is doing. But of course, if you're going to have static shells and move into dynamic shells, that is a very aggressive change in philosophy, which we're trying to advocate for. When you're always reacting, your opponent dictates your fate. The Dallas Cowboys isn't just losing battles, it's forfeiting tempo. Then, I mean, enough of the X's and O's. Here's one of the most important parts with Eberflus and his defense right now. It's the politics that's going on with this team that's clear as day. There are players on your team that your fans, that your coaches can clearly see that are not matching the rhetoric your head coach and Brian Schottenheimer is pushing via competition. And there's examples of this throughout there. Let's start by my guy Luafau. It took him to the second and third game before he's actually getting more snaps, and he's still being undersnapped. How about your safeties in Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker, who I don't care if they're captains, they were giving up big plays left and right the first and second games, and having a mishaps and just showing that they're literally regressing in terms of athleticism, which is a big no-no on the roof. Then y'all gonna shank me with the butter knife and hate me when I say this. I just stopped fighting you on, but it's still stupid what you're doing with the internal D tackle position. I'm sorry. Why is Jay Toia still getting active reps? Like, it's clear as day that Mozzie is a better backup than him. But and I don't like how you're deploying the defensive line. I absolutely hate the Osa and Solomon Thomas combo. When we played the Jets, and I believe they did it again numerous of times in the previous game versus the Panthers, they absolutely feasted when we went into that. And I'm just like, you cannot have 2-3 techs out there and just say, oh, just fire through the gap, we're gonna get there. That is playing disingenuous football. And then corporate number one, I don't care that we had a bad game with the linebackers. Your guy Jack Sanborn and him starting here and him, I watch film every time. I'm counting like 8 to 9 missed tackles, clearly unathletic, clearly getting literally hunted in the scheme. The politics on his defense and the wrong personnel we have out there is alarming. It's very alarming. And I think to fix that, it's literally more clear than ever. And this is with this one statement: play the young guy, the young, hungry gun. I promise you, they're going to fight for you. They're more athletic. They are hungry, and that you can. It would be chef's kiss. It's going to take more coaching, but hey, that's what they pay you for. And lastly, it takes me to my last reasoning for this, and that's Eberflus's stubbornness. He won't adapt. Before the Jets game, there was reports that Trayvon Diggs went to Eberflus and recommended that we not do the passive system. Let's try and incorporate some more aggressive approach. Because if you don't know, we know our personnel. We know Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, they are aggressive corners. They want to play man so they can play out of phase, bait shoot, everything like that. We know we're missing Micah Parsons up front and we're not able to generate a rush. The corners know they need some type of rush in order to not be covering as long, in order to not get gashed as long. We perform that in one game, and the very next game, we revert right back. That is a big issue, and I'm sorry, I have to grade you to your predecessor, because Mike Zimmer was one of the best D coordinators I ever seen, and the reason why I did that, he adapted and made what he had work, even when he had literally the entire defense on without Micah Parsons for at least 4 games, without DeMarcus Lawrence, without his starting linebackers, eventually losing Overshown later on, losing all the cornerbacks. Mike Zimmer adapted his scheme and still got high quality play out of it. Now, it wasn't that high, but it was enough to keep us out of the lottery, goddammit. If you're willing to die by your scheme in order to hang on to your pride, to say it was your idea, we have deeper problems on this team, and I'm sorry, that is going to get you fired, Eberflus. And everyone wants your head right now after what's happening after this Panthers game, but the one thing that can save you, if you ever see this video, you must adapt to your personnel. Try again next year. If we have draft picks, if we get people that fit your scheme more, advocate for it. Don't be quiet. You sat and took this roster, so don't get mad if they can't do your scheme. Adapt to it, because we know how this front office is. All in all, the stubborn identity, the lack of rushing the internal clock, the reacting philosophical flaw, the millions of politics being going on this team, and your stubbornness, Eberflus, is the reason why you have a big hodgepodge of absolute garbage on this defense right now. The passivity trickles from the top, and who can blame you? Even hiring you was fishy to begin with. Don't even get me started on how the offensive side of the ball is completely guys that does not have any ties to anyone but Schottenheimer. But the defensive side, we know you, Eberflus, as a former coach here, and you bring everyone from your Chicago stint here to coach. That is a clear difference. So to fix this defense, you first need to change the identity. If you want your team to be more physical, be more vocal, call them out, but also adhere to what they want to do and playing more aggressive. Not to mention, front office, fix this. You promised him Micah Parsons and you threw him away. It's time to go replace him. It's time to go replace him, because that is the ultimate compromise in this, okay? But once they do that, Eberflus, I still need to see more blitzing, incorporating 2 paid corners that you have paid as man corners. Stop trying to make them they're not, and sit them in zones. Use the raw athleticism. You're getting more troops back, even though your side of the ball is more healthier than the offensive side of the ball. Get more aggressive, especially on third down. I'm tired of seeing it be 3rd and 6 and you have them sitting at the 7th yard and they're running comebacks to get the first down. Let's be slightly more aggressive in that. Let's start attacking them. Cowboys Nation, tell me in the comments below, what is your biggest issue with this defense? Is it scheme, personnel, coaching? Let me know below. It's time that we do our part in putting something in this air, because man, this This offense has to play perfect in order for us to be within the game. Keep the pressure up. Let's make a trade. Hype the video. Like and subscribe. I love you all. Until next time. Peace.